Welcome back to Mass Appeal. It pains you when you see a loved one that needs help, but having that conversation trying to get them help oftentimes is harder. Clinical psychologist Dr. Tim Hope is here with some tips for us. Why is it so difficult for people to seek help? I think it's a social stigma that we have. People don't want to admit that they have a problem, and they definitely don't want to get help.
Right, especially for us guys, right? So asking that, admitting that you need help is a sign of weakness, too many of us think. Too many of us think that an emotional problem or a feelings problem is something that is a flaw, a character flaw for us. And we do. Our society has gone great lengths to develop a greater acceptance over mental health, a greater acceptance and understanding of emotional components of our performance, of emotional components of our well-being. It's better integrated into healthcare, and yet it is still something that people feel like they need to keep in the closet. So one aspect of it is a feeling of shame. Geez, is this some kind of weakness where I need to go and talk to somebody?
A lot of times, too, when you're doing it with your spouse or maybe a parent, that's when it gets even touchier, too, because these are people who you're not stuck with, but you have to live with these people. So it's important that you get them the help they need, but no one wants to have that sticky conversation.
Right. I would say that about a quarter of my patients have partners who do need significant help, and they are there with me to talk about those concerns. And those concerns really can have very wide ranging difficulties, from coping with anxiety to difficulties with coping with work or stress or anger problems. Really, this touches all of our lives. And because it touches all of our lives, we're close with these people, these family members that we have, our loved ones, our partners, our friends. We have a long history with them. And so it can be really awkward to try and broach that kind of conversation.
And I think a lot of people, too, they say, oh, it's not so bad, or oh, it'll get better. But there are certain warning signs that, in your mind, kind of throw up red flags and say someone needs to consider therapy, or someone needs to really talk to their partner about coming in. Let's talk about some of those warning signs. You have first one's behavior that scares you.
Right. So clearly, if there's a behavior that is dangerous, do not wait. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You call that person's doctor. You encourage them to get help immediately. Because if it's something that's dangerous, that's imminent risk of harm to themselves or to other people. And you wouldn't want to wake up the next morning and say, geez, I wish I had done something.
And that's something that's more hard to live with than anything else.
Right.
The next thing is, in that person that needs to go to therapy, you might see them kind of letting themselves go a little bit in a variety of different ways.
So you can see changes in what their normal routine is. Are they not quite taking care of themselves the way they used to? Looking a little bit more disheveled, or their clothes aren't quite as neat or clean, or they aren't eating well, or they aren't sleeping well. They aren't just taking care of themselves. And that's one of the things that I mean when I talk about a change from baseline. Their behavior is going along fine, and then you have a real significant shift. And that significant shift is a potential warning sign.
And oftentimes there's a traumatic event that can trigger a lot of these feelings too. So maybe if something like that happens, everyone needs to be hypersensitive to the person who is affected by that trauma.
And when there is a traumatic event, the most important thing is to not assume it is traumatizing for that other person. So a traumatic event is a good cue for you to say, I should get closer to this person that I love and check in with them. How are you? How are things going? This was a terrible thing that happened. Anything I can do to help? And that gives you an opportunity to at least open up the conversation and gives them the message, it's fine to talk about this.
This kind of bridges us to our next point. It's how the heck we sit someone down and say, you need counseling, you need to talk to someone. It seems impossible, but how do we start making those steps?
So there are some things to not do. Don't do this over the family dinner. Don't do this when you're having an argument. Do it at a time that things are going pretty well, that it's just some you two time, that it's just a quiet time, things are very positive, and that gives you a chance to open up the conversation and say, you know what, I'd really like to have what I think might be a hard conversation with you. It's because I care about you, it's because I think you need some help, and I really want to be there for you. We're in this together.
And I notice what you're doing is one of your tips. It's using I language. It's not saying you.
I language means I am concerned about you. Use that I statement. I am worried about what I'm seeing here. I want to be helpful to you. That's what I statements, as opposed to you have a problem, this is your issue, you need to go get help.
It probably makes someone not feel as bad, but at the same time, if your partner's using a lot of I language, you see that you're hurting them.
And I language really helps to to settle down some of the potential conflict or angst or difficulty or anxiety that the person who's hearing this coming from you might be feeling. So that would be good.
Let's face it, these conversations, no matter what, almost are never easy to have. Your last tip, which I love, yet I don't really understand, it's to ask for a gift. What is that gift?
So let's say that you do have a partner who is willing to have the conversation, and yet they're still very reluctant. You could ask them to do something for you. So listen, I don't need any more anniversary presents. I don't need any more birthday presents. What you could do for me is go to this counseling appointment. I found this counselor. I think they would be a great match. They do exactly what it is that I think would be helpful for you. As a gift to me, just go and talk to them.
And that must be a good idea, too, to give your partner the gift of finding a counselor, because to be saddled with these problems and then to have to go through the difficulties of finding someone to talk to, if your partner can help in that process, you're a step ahead.
Listen, we all face these kinds of challenges, right? And at those times, we feel most alone. So if you have a partner who's willing to be there with you, who's willing to walk down that road, who's willing to be supportive of you, you don't feel quite as alone. And so it might make it a little more easy to ask for the help.
Dr. Hope, it's a tough conversation, so I really appreciate you helping, because you know that there are people out there who are facing these issues right now with a friend or a loved one. So thank you for giving them the help and support that they really need.
Welcome.
And if you want more tips on how you can be a supportive partner, just visit us online, mymassappeal.com, later today.